It's time to get on the ice. Music City Gold is on the air with Kyle Hancock, Daniel Mangrum, and Matt Bain. We are Smashville's best fan-driven podcast, featuring news around the league, the Predators, and the occasional hot take or two. Part of the Penalty Box Radio Network, you're listening to Music City Gold.
And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Music City Gold on the Penalty Box Radio Network. I am your host, Kyle. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Daniel and Matt.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Matt, look at my shirt.
Washington Capitals.
Because Ovechkin,
That's
tearing
right.
it up.
Absolutely crushing it.
You can't even deny it at this point, can you?
Yeah, he's definitely, not only is, one of the best players of all time, but he has to be the number one star this week. It's been absolutely, last week I would say was Lucas Raymond. This week is going to be Ovechkin all day long. And especially because he tied what's-his-face for Andrew Chuck for number 2 or 3 all-time on
No,
number one.
They're tied number one.
Sorry.
He gets one more goal. He has the all-time power play points.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And also, too, he surpassed Draisaitl and McDavid this week for points, overall points. He's 36 years old.
Yeah.
And he's beating them little whippersnappers. And you have to admit, that's pretty impressive at this point.
Apparently, he hasn't led the league in points in like 6 years, so that is definitely impressive. It's been the Ovi show for sure.
And that's why I wore this. Bought this when I was in D.C. It's one of my favorite arenas to go to, and I'm actually planning to try to go there next year and see a game up in D.C. It's absolute blast to see them play there. I watched the Capitals play the Flyers, which was a good, just beat down game.
Yeah, that'd be fun, man. It's gonna be a good night. We got espressos already. We got great hockey news going on. So what are we kicking it off with tonight?
Well, first thing, we're going to talk about some coach firings that happen around the league.
Few.
First thing that came out was that the Vancouver Canucks, a couple weeks ago, got rid of GM G. Bennon. Well, I would say GM Jim Bennon, to get it correct there, and head coach Travis Green were fired. A lot of people thought Bennon was going to go, but they weren't expecting Travis Green to go, and it looks like the owner, Aquila, just cleaned house all the way.
Oh, yeah. They got a big broom out and just started sweeping it because, the Canucks were basically in the basement. But this leads us to what has to be one of the craziest, best stories of the year for a team, and that would be the hiring of Bruce, baby. He comes back out of retirement, and guess what he's doing with this Canucks team? He is 5-0 since taking over.
Yep.
What is going on?
He isn't a great coach. Matt, what do you think? If they get another win, it's going to be 6-0. Do you think that Bruce Boudreau is we'll say, is he the finalist for the Jack Adams?
I think it's too early.
Consider that.
I think it's too early, but because they're still in the basement. Let's be honest. They're still in the basement.
But you've got a coach who's done this good with this team that was basically one of the laughingstocks of Canada outside the Hobbs.
But it's been 5 games. So let's see where we're at the end of the year. But this is definitely the hot start that they wanted. You have to look at this and be like, he is getting the most out of the players. He somehow has a certain motivating factor when he comes in. He does have a very strong presence.
Yeah, he's like a firecracker.
Yeah, very firecracker, but it has motivated his team. Thatcher Demko in goal has been lights out since he's joined. You have Pettersson, who is now starting to see more production. So, I don't know, that change, you've seen it before, coaching change, lights a fire underneath the players. But this one is a little bit different because it has been a sustained win streak. They haven't lost since he's got there. And it seems like the players are genuinely more happy to play underneath him. I think,
what it's dynamic to me is that it shows you, excuse me. Yeah, what I think it shows me is the dynamic nature of what one decision like that can play, because really they have the same players, and yet you got a total 360 with the team. I think it shows you the whole culture. They were losing, they were upset, they were mad, kind of down the dumps. And when they got a new coach, he's one of the top 5 coaches of our era, I would say. He's got extreme veteran presence. He's a firecracker. He knows how to light up veterans in the locker room and get them to perform. And you bring him in, and the team total 360. And it's just quite remarkable. I don't know about Jack Adams. We'll see about that. But at least it's something for the fans to be excited of, because here's the thing. there's been a lot of disappointments in the league this year, and the Canucks were definitely one of them. But it's different when you have a team that's destined, you know that's coming. But the Canucks were not so. The Canucks are a team I want to see in the playoffs, and it may be too far gone now. They probably need a miracle to come back at this point. But the point was, they have that caliber of talent already present in the roster. So it's interesting to note it almost brings faith back to me to show what a coach can do to really light up a storm under the roster and change it on its head and let the high players shine.
Now, one of the things I noticed, you're talking about this coach, did you guys hear the chant that the crowd was doing of how much they love Bruce? I mean, Matt, I thought surely you'd have heard this. I think it was like the second or third game, I think maybe even the first game that they started to like really do well. The crowd starts chanting, Bruce, there it is.
No, I heard the Fire Jim Benning chant, but I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, they're pretty vocal up there in Canada about, I mean, let's just be honest. How many Canadian teams this year have had jerseys thrown on the ice? I mean, practically almost every single one of them, except the Senators, which I know their fans are kind of like,
their fans are used to it.
They're
bro.
like, you know what? We're going to be in the basement. We kind of understand.
I mean, I think they were actually shocked they beat the Panthers 8-2 the other night.
Oh, that I literally tuned in and I'm like looking at the score and I'm like 8-2. Is this the Senators?
That
like,
shows
what
you
happened.
The huge amount of is the word parity that the league has, where even such a terrible team can beat like the best team in the league on any night. That's incredible. And I will admit, there seems like there's a little bit less parity in the league this year.
Yes,
there's a lot more bottom feeders. When teams are down, they're down hard this year, and there's a lot of spitting out the competition this year. But in general, for sure, it's a good sign for the league.
Just to circle back to the Canucks, though, the other night I thought Bruce was going to get his first loss in the Columbus game, and they scored 3 straight in the flipping third period with a power play goal with like 50 seconds left. And I was sitting there and I'm like, wow. Like, I mean, and you could kind of see the team kind of rallying around it too. And like, they believed that they were going to score. Like, they just looked more dangerous than they have been. So, I mean, good on them. It is just crazy, though, what a coach can do. Now, on the other hand, we've had some other coaching moves, and they're still not really panning out. So, what was the other firing?
So Philadelphia Flyers fired their head coach, Lane Vigneault, and assistant coach, Michael Terran. And then Mike Yeo comes around. And
Mike Yeo again.
Look, I'm sorry.
I'll give it to you. Those are hard names to say.
I was actually, we're not going to cut this. I was reading this earlier, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to get these names wrong, and you're going to yell at me anyway.
You got to be French, right?
It's all right.
It's all right. You gotta say it with some flair there.
But we've not seen Mike Yeo as the bench boss since the Blues.
I know. And it's crazy because I think Matt kept pointing this out, that the Flyers basically had like 3 head coaches sitting on their bench, which is funny to me, and they still were doing terrible. I didn't realize, I don't know, I must have been underneath a rock this year, but I did not realize how bad the Flyers were doing until this firing, and then I started like pulling up their stats, and I'm like, whoa, like look at that goal difference, like it was pretty bad, and like they had really high hopes. I mean, you're bringing in Ellis at the beginning of the year too, you're bolstering your defense, and now we're posting like -20, -25 on the goal differential here. Yeah, I mean, it's just been interesting. And then even since the firing too, like the first couple games, really rough for Yo. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I feel like they are struggling to find their identity this year. But that said, they're digging themselves a pretty deep hole. I mean, they're down there with New Jersey right now, .481 win percentage, win percentage right now. So they're under 500, and that's not acceptable probably for that roster that they had coming in. I mean, they had high playoff hopes too.
Yeah. From what I've heard, I wanted some more information, and this is what I've gathered from the people, I guess, who really know. It seems that, I haven't outright said it, but there was a bit of a, grinding the gears with Vigneault and his players. Apparently he kind of represented, and we've seen this a lot this year, really canceling the culture of coaches and people in the organization that are kind of like not good for the organization. And apparently he was grinding his players too hard. He had kind of a bad reputation for being too hard on them. And I don't know if Terrian kind of was in the same thing with Vigneault, and they'd say, well, let's get rid of both of them. Let's kind of get rid of this bad negative culture, and let's try to go with new. I'm really curious to see if Mike Yeo stays as the full-time going forward, or is this like a stopgap? He's got a head coach experience, so he very well could stay the coach. But something we allude to is that the coaching jobs in the NHL are kind of like a closed loop system. There's not a whole lot of new blood coming in the NHL head coach role. So it wouldn't surprise me if they stay with him or maybe somebody different. You know, you look at the available pool of coaches that are available. And I think that's what Vancouver did as well. They said, well, we got so-and-so guys could be coming up. So I don't know if they're going to stay with him or not, but it would really surprise me if they bring in somebody without head coaching, NHL head coaching experience to fill the gap if they sit Mike Yeo down at the end of the year.
I think they honestly write him out the rest of the year as a show me year. Like, hey, show me you can actually perform maybe like above 500 and then kind of see where his win percentage was based to where he took over. You know what I mean? And then kind of reevaluate. I mean, he's been a good coach before. I mean, obviously, it's just one of those things. Until some of these old tenure coaches just decide to stay retired and just like call it quits, like Matt said, it's a closed door. Like the system is what it is. Like you're going to have hardly any new hires or new faces in the NHL. I mean, it's just been like that for the last probably 5 to 10 years, really. So until we actually get some retirees out there, I just don't see it changing at this point.
I don't think the NHL is going to do anything about the coaches because we'll move on down to our next one. Because you said the coaching is a closed loop, it's also the NHL doesn't like to admit when they're wrong about something. And let's take a look at the Arizona Coyotes. I mean, unfortunate human error of not paying your taxes to the point that
this is a drama. This is
says
crazy.
that we're going to lock you out of the arena because you won't pay your bills.
I don't know who to believe anymore because Glendale doesn't care about them. They don't either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it is as Matt would say, this is a lose-lose situation. I mean, like that's one of Matt's favorite lines because like seriously, like they don't want to be in Glendale. Glendale apparently doesn't want them. Now we have a tax situation where we have to wire $1.3 million overnight. I mean, this is almost comical at this point, and they're in the dumpster this year as far as point standing wise. I mean, you couldn't be in a more terrible position than you are right now, and for the Arizona Coyotes. I mean, what's the remedy at this point? Like, just get out, go to like I don't know, Phoenix or something, or are they going to move them to Atlanta? Like, I don't know at this point.
Well, Bettman said that they're not leaving Arizona. They may change cities, but they're not leaving Arizona. I think the last thing I thought I read from Freed was that they were looking at maybe Tempe to go to.
Yeah, I had heard a couple different, possibilities for an arena because apparently Glendale has said they're not going to play there next year.
They don't care.
So, and honestly, with the money situation, there's been a couple of reporters. One reporter said, yeah, they owed, 1.3 mil. Another reporter said, oh, no, they're good. They paid it. So I don't really know who to believe. And then there was another report saying that the team was shopping around the idea of selling the franchise to another location. Selling ownership, and then another report said, no, that's absolutely ludicrous. Unfortunately, it seems like because all this is going on at one time, there's going to be a lot more of this coming until something is settled. And I think the interesting part to note is I heard from Friedman say that, the owner's really comfortable here in Phoenix or Arizona, so he doesn't want to sell. So they might have to get shuffled around cities maybe, but as far as that market, they're staying. And he said in the Board of Governors meeting, they were discussing the possibility of maybe moving markets. And he said that Bettman kept doubling and tripling down on the idea that he supported the Phoenix, Arizona market. And apparently years ago, I don't really remember this, but Bettman was the one who pushed that. He was the one who introduced, when we went to that market to begin with, to start a new franchise. And they said, it's not like Bettman to go against what he said. He was doubling down on this was a market where the hockey is going to be and the NHL is going to be in. So there's no way he's going to say 10 or 15 years later, no, we're not going to be here anymore because Bettman's going to double down on what he said.
I don't know what they're going to do. I just found it funny when they interviewed the Glendale city manager, and he was like, there's a very simple way to do this payment. You put your numbers in, and there's a big, giant commit payment button.
Yeah.
I mean, I
didn't laugh at that.
I've worked in businesses, and I pay bills online, and you can't miss those payment buttons.
It's the easy button. You know what I'm talking
about?
I'm like, I don't know. Like human error thing. That I just laughed at the whole situation because it's like if there was any organization that this story would come out, it was the Arizona Coyotes. Like I literally was like, and that's sad because I kind of like them. I like
They've got good jerseys.
They got great jerseys. They're just they're just the beat up like stepchild. Like just like literally they don't get the love that they should. Even from the city, the fans, I just don't get it.
People say they might move to Houston because the rumor is, I don't know how true it is. They said Houston is the only major city that has the market that could support an NHL team that doesn't have one.
Yeah, that's
well.
that's
You
what
have
I heard
Atlanta
was-
too, but they've already tried the Atlanta experiment, so I feel like they're like we're done.
They're not going to go to Atlanta because Atlanta has an ECHL team.
Well, that said, it is comical that it is happening to the Arizona Coyotes too. They've had this with the city. They've had the circumnavigating the cap. I mean, it has just been a dumpster fire for them. They've obviously sold half their team off for future considerations and picks to basically ramp up the rebuild over the next several years. So my only hope is that they get out of Glendale, get a city that actually cares about them, get some fans that actually care about them, and start the rebuild with the 500 draft picks, that they've gotten after selling their entire team off. Because I mean, at this point, it's just Phil Kessel eating hot dogs out on the ice, and there's no one else there. I mean, it's sad.
Only worst thing that could happen to them is I know at this point everyone knows they're tanking. They're just tanking. I would love it if the Hops beat them in the tank race. Just insult to injury.
Yeah,
I can
they're
see that
bad, too.
happening because lottery draft never goes to the team that needs it the most, which only exacerbates and makes worse the situation for the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the league as it is. So that wouldn't surprise me at all.
But let's talk about Ben Bishop now.
Ooh.
I first heard about Ben Bishop when he played for the Lightning, and I loved his mask. I loved his saves.
Yep.
Then he takes a stint over with the Kings after their run in 2015, plays with them for a bit. Yeah, you didn't know?
Did he really?
He went to the Kings.
I don't recall that.
Like it was like a cup of coffee
He's
with
like,
the Kings.
I'm gonna have to pull up.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
I'm gonna
I
have
don't
to pull up
remember
the stats right
I know
now.
I got a bad memory, but
and then he went over to the Stars.
Yeah.
He's got Anton Khudobin with him. Backstops to a perfect, I believe it was 2019-2020 Stanley Cup final, if I'm not mistaken. And then here we are 2 years later, basically, and Ben Bishop's career is over, and Dobby has been sent down to the AHL to play with the Texas Stars.
Well, let's mention that they had 4 goaltenders on roster. They had Holtby, Khudobin, Jake Ottinger, and Bishop. So they had a goalie problem, and it's unfortunate that Ben Bishop can't recover from his injury, and he's self-proclaimed, done with his career. I mean, that sucks, but they still had to let somebody else go. So then they sent the other guy down to the minors, and now they're okay with 2 goalies, but it's been a cacophony of misfortunes at the moment.
Yeah, I'll put it like this. Like, it wasn't it like 2 seasons ago? This is their record. Ben Bishop had 16-9-3. Khudobin was 11-6-1. They had a .93 save percentage and a .932 save percentage, which was first and second in the entire league. And their goals against was 2.23 and a 2.13, which was fourth and second in the league. That was their tandem. And both those goalies in the same week, completely gone. You have one going down to, I believe it was an injury, Ben Bishop. And here's the deal. Another unfortunate goaltender who is going to finish their career without a Stanley Cup. This is now the third one here recently.
I'm not that upset about that. I mean, I'll get hurt if a guy like Ovechkin doesn't get a cup or like McDavid, but I'm not going to shed too many tears over Ben Bishop not getting a cup.
But just imagine, though, you have to basically go get surgery on your meniscus, and you think you can still play, and you go to the AHL, and you play one game, and you basically give up 8 goals. And it's that point you realize you're done. Your dream is over.
Well,
that sucks.
It wasn't from a talent perspective. Yeah, that was a bad game for him, but I think the reason for the bad performance is the injury. It's a nagging injury.
It's done. It's going to be lingering.
Yeah.
Like that, and he knows it too.
Yeah, that's exactly why
it's a Weber situation.
Yeah, he's admitting that his career is done, especially for goalies, on those stress joints and things, especially if you've got previous injuries. They're a lot more sensitive to that. So, he can recondition and get better, but it's going to be a nagging injury. And that's why he's called it quits. He knows what's up.
Yeah, I mean, his goals against was a 2.32 career average and a save percentage of a .921 over his entire career. I mean, that's very impressive numbers. He played 413 games.
And I think the more important stat you left off. is that he was a 3-time Vezina finalist.
I know.
So that's the big one for me.
And it's
two wins shy of a Stanley Cup.
2 wins shy. And same thing with Lundqvist. I mean, that's the crazy part is like all these goaltenders here recently that have bowed out, they were 2 or 3 games away. Like almost every single one of them. The Preds were 2 games away from getting Peck his cup. Rangers were 2 games away. It's just another sad end to a career that was great. And like I said, I was almost more shocked that Dobby was waived too in the same week because he had been an excellent backup goaltender. And then honestly, like when Ben was dealing with all this, he kind of stepped up as like the main goaltender. I felt like last year for the Stars. So I guess they're banking on their new young talent.
Yeah,
doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I think I would have waived one of the others and then kept Dobby with one of the younger ones to kind of balance
I would have waived
out.
the one goalie, and I can't remember his name, the 4th goalie, because
Jake Ottinger.
Yeah, Jake Ottinger. I would have waived him because you've got Braden Holtby. I would have went with a Holtby Dobby situation.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the those 4. So Hudobin was the oldest. Holtby is probably the best out of the remaining. And the most wins. So you got to have like a 1, and then you can. I guess it's fine to keep Ottinger. You kind of have like a young backup. That's fine. But yeah, I don't know about the Hudobin situation. I don't know if that was. I'd like to hear a little more into it. Was it sent down, waived because of? And here's the thing: he wasn't just sent down on conditioning assignment. He was waived. Yeah. So I'd like to know if that was performance based, or were they going to just have to scratch one of the 2 anyway? And it was just like a tough decision. Like I don't know.
I was just very surprised with the COVID protocols going on and everything else that there wasn't a team out there that didn't pick him up as just basically an emergency backup.
Yeah, apparently, it's the league, the year of the emergency backups. I've heard that teams are kind of trying to bargain to get the league to allow them to have an extra goalie on these trips because of how much they've had to been called upon due to COVID protocol.
Yeah,
but the issue is the salary cap constraints, and now you're seeing the last week they're trying to shoehorn in some ways to help create space for these type of situations. It's a really unique situation going on. We're going to see more of that going forward, but it's definitely been going on so far. But go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say, did you see your boy Tuukka Rask from the Bruins signed as their emergency backup goalie for a game?
Yeah, he did. I saw that.
I laughed so hard at that. It's whatever. I mean, I don't know.
So, but that's got me all down, Kyle. But so I'm going to switch it to a high note here and talk about my boy, Marc-Andre Fleury.
This is a big milestone.
Is he really your boy?
My boy. My favorite goalie by far. Not even close, for sure. Gets his 500th career win and does so in fewer games than it took Marty Brodeur and Patrick Waugh to reach 500 wins, which I think makes a very good case. You could call him the best goalie of all time. And I know you can bend the numbers, and what stat you want to take depends on who you take. There's about 4 or 5 goalies that you could make a contender for all time. But that's an 18-year career statistic. He's my man. He's got cups on his back. He's my boy. We can make a case for the other guys on another day, but today it's Marc-Andre's show, so good for my boy.
Did you see the crowd's reaction to in Canada? Because it was an away game when he did it.
It was in
Montreal.
In Habs, yeah.
Yeah, and every single fan was standing towards the end because they knew he was going to win. It was like a 3-0 or whatever.
And he's got heritage in that area.
And he has some backstory there, and basically every single fan was just chanting his name. And I'm like, that right there shows you the respect they have for that dude, for everybody. Congrats. I mean, that's a major milestone.
Even the next game, they went and played in Washington. Washington came into Chicago and played, and people like Ovechkin were giving Marc-Andre Fleury an ovation as the home crowd was honored. They did a little presentation.
He looked like giddy. Like Ovi's on the bench. He looked like a little kid. Like, I mean, he loves that stuff too, because, I mean, it's funny because like the shoe's on the other foot, but he's just scoring the goals and he's stopping the goals.
But
you know what I mean? It's
here's the thing: talent recognizes talent.
Man. Yeah, and that's why.
Well, and I will say, Ovechkin had a beautiful PP goal against them that night. Awe was wide open as usual in his office, nobody around for a country mile, and he absolutely top
shelf,
hits,
and that was the one. Yeah,
hits the bar. Oh, right past.
And that's the one to tie, which I'm like, how, like, you're looking at 2 legends too. And the cool part is when he played with the Penguins too, like, Ovi knows him really well.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny because, like you said, that respect is there because it's like, man, this guy's been playing really good against me for all these years too. And then, like, on the other hand, Fleury's like, well, this guy's been, killing me in my stats for power play goals and all this stuff for all these years too. So much respect for both of them. But yeah, I mean, like you said, he is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of goaltenders, in my opinion. I mean, he's got to be up there, like you said, top 4 all time, like for sure. And especially doing it in the modern era, like this time period where it is just so stiff, the competition. It's incredible. I mean, he's got the hardware, he's got the Vezina, he's done it all, and he's a great guy. I mean, when he rubs the post every single time, when he just gives it a little, it's just it's the most adorable thing. He's got a lot of personality. Great personality. And he's rocking those like brown pads right now too. That like old school throwback look, and I'm like, man, that's great looking. So good for him.
Well, maybe one day he'll get some silver pads. Now I don't know which team did this. It was on Reddit, and I saw it in a passing comment. Some goalie, and this sounds terrible because I should have had the information, but it just showed up. You were talking about the 500 wins, and it just showed up in my mind. There was a team in the NHL that had a goalie who reached a certain milestone of like so many games played or something like that, and they gave him, instead of like a silver stick, he had a set of silver shin pads.
That's awesome.
I saw they did give him a special helmet. I don't know if it was silver. I didn't see a face mask, but for sure.
So let's talk about Anaheim Ducks now. Trevor Zegras is like tearing the NHL up so much to the point that John Tortorella can't stand him.
He's just angrily screaming at the clouds. What is that? Like,
now, did you guys go back and watch that goal?
Yeah. I've only seen it like 50 times now. It's all the rage this week in the league.
Yeah.
Well, you got to think though. They aptly have called it the dishigan.
It's the first time I've heard that. I have not heard that.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he's dishing it.
Yeah. It seems the whole league is really enamored. We've never seen it before. Oh, it was a beauty. I'm less enamored with it as you guys and everybody else.
I'm not that enamored with it, honestly. No,
it's a cool goal.
It was a very good goal. I'm gonna give it to him, and like it's cool, but like practicality wise, it's not gonna happen very often. It's like kind of like the Michigan thing. You're gonna see it every now and then, and that just is what it is. But it's not like you're gonna start saying like Torts took it to the next level because he's like angrily like, and I'm like,
well, say what he said. For the people who don't know, Torts was basically saying that, back in my day, if a kid did this, we would have took his head off. This is bad for hockey. This is an honest game, and this move right here is not an honest way to play hockey.
Which I thought was a terrible take.
Which I'm like, a goal is a goal, dude. Here's the deal. A goal is a goal, no matter how you get it. I'm sorry. You can wave your head all you want it, but
you should go back and find the clip where Torts is talking with Ray Ferraro about this. And Ray basically told Torts that he was wrong. He said, I get where you're coming from about this being like an honest, hardworking game. He's like, but we're not them. He goes, we weren't as skilled as they were. He's like, sorry, Torts, you have to watch kids coming in that are skilled.
And on top of it, this is my whole point. How often is this goal going to happen? Especially now that it's been publicized. And people are going to be
watch for it.
People are going to be looking for it. Because now, like, if you notice, like, when a player goes behind the goal with any sort of speed, the goaltender is looking for that player to turn that puck up on their stick when they try the Michigan goal. And what they do is they immediately slide over and they guard that whole post, even up to the face mask. They do it. And the same thing is going to happen with this goal. Yeah. It's not going to happen very often. So Torts can sit down and just, like, it's not like every other goal is going to be like, now, if there was some cheap move, like, you know what I mean? Like, they introduced something new and then, like, literally every single player was implementing it. And then all of a sudden you had 10 goals a night. You know what I mean? Like, I could see where someone would be upset at that point. But it is such a rare case. It is like the Michigan goal. You're not going to see it that often.
Yeah, Lundqvist on TNT said that, we'll see in the future how much this kind of goal is becoming a style or not. It could just be a couple one-off randoms. But he said, when I played, I was already up. A lot of goalies are crouched down, but I was up. So if I see this coming in more, what I'm going to start doing is putting my blocker up and start and glove up and start trying to block off that pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what it is. Like, you're going to adapt, and now that it is widely publicized, it's not going to be an everyday thing. By the way, since they've had the goal, has there been another one since?
There has not.
Exactly.
But there's been so many kids and people like from the mites all the way up trying it, and they're showing people trying it, which is great. Those types of things,
that's
to me,
fun to do it in practice.
They're great in practice. They just go to show you how skilled the game is getting. And I know, Matt, you don't like it. You know,
you don't like how good the game's getting skilled?
I'll have to say I identify a little bit with old man Tortorella here. I don't like the kids. I think it's like what you said, Kyle. The young kids doing this is way beyond the skill level of the guys in the 90s and the 80s and even the early 2000s. This kind of crap wasn't the style of hockey that they played, and I think that really hurts Tortorella's pride.
So McDavid, he plays a different style than those old school people.
And Torts has come out and talked against him.
You said McDavid's the best player on the planet?
Sure.
But saying, his style is new.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, as an old timer, a guy who likes the old style of hockey, I could see how it would really hurt an old guy's pride that these young kids, he's a freaking freshman, he's a rookie, and he's coming out, putting out a goal that the NHL has never seen against players who played 15, 20 years in the league from old school, from the 80s. And I see how that pisses them off.
I get it, but at the same time, too, McDavid came in the league and he's won the MVP almost every single year and put up 100 points every single year.
He's skating through defenders they're nothing.
He skated through 4 people how many times this year?
Twice so far.
And that's the new style.
Yeah, I would say.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I understand like where you're saying like those old school people are hurt by it. Like, I get that, but at the same time too, they got to understand like there's a totally different style of hockey played right now.
To me, the mentality where I think Torts is wrong is when he said I would take him aside and talk to him and tell him not to basically do that. Yeah, that is wrong.
I will say it's not unwell known that anytime rookies try to do a showboat move like that, that pisses off veterans. Even not just coaches, we're talking about veterans on the ice, because the rookies need to not be hot dogging it as it is. So I get that, but I think the key thing is that would have been a conversation had he not made that work.
Also,
he did.
This was also, I want to point this out. This was an assist rather than a goal.
Yeah, we're not even talking about the fact that Sonny Milano is the one who scored the goal.
He's the one that actually batted it out.
Apparently, he was telling him to do a Michigan too, apparently, while he was setting it up.
But that's my whole thing is like, this was a 2-person goal. So you can't call it greedy because it wasn't one person trying to pull off a Michigan goal. You see what I mean? Like, that's my whole thing is like...
I think I'm upset that the kids these days in college and, in the minors are as good as the pros from the 80s. That pisses me off. Just going to say it.
Well,
I will say that I'm not dazzled by the skill of that play by any means. I am dazzled by the creativity. And I see with how fast and how skillful the league is, I've always said that you see how many redirects happen in front of the net. Players are blocking out the goalie's vision, and as somebody shoots it chest high, somebody redirects it with their twig in midair like a baseball bat and just redirects it in the goal every single time. And that's, to me, that seems unhuman. How can somebody do that? So the league has developed to where the kids of these days absolutely are more skilled than the NHL of old. And that makes me, as an old timer, I guess you could say, mentality, that upsets me. But it certainly is good for the game. I can't see how it could get any more skilled. Back in Gretzky's day, we're like, oh man, this guy is so good. I don't know how it could get any better. And now here you
McDavid
are 15 years later. Wow, it got better. The league as a whole, the skill set, the players coming up, they're more talented. And I don't know where we could go here, but I'm excited to see what's going to happen next.
Does that make what Ovi's doing currently more impressive?
Nah. I mean, in what sense?
Because we just said the league's been getting better the entire time, but now he's leading the league in a year. Do you see what I mean? That's the whole point. Is like the league has been getting better, and Ovi's been progressing with it, and he's leading. Right, that's what I was trying to get at. Like it's one of those things, and I'm not taking away. Like I understand the old school mentality but everything has changed. Like McDavid has ran through I don't know how many players this year. He's a walking highlight reel every time he walks out on that ice. He is by far the best skater. Most dynamic. We've already been over this on the show, but it is just impressive, like you said, with how strong these kids are coming out of college.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unbelievable.
I'm impressed with his ability to keep up at such an old age. I think the key differential for me is that I don't necessarily think it's skill based. I think he's a pile driver who drives the power play, and people leave him wide open. So I don't call that skill on the same level as a Zegras potentially or a McDavid. But I will say I definitely commend him for his abilities to keep up in a game that has gotten more skilled away from his style of playing back in the 90s.
Well, I mean, even this year he's racking up assists, which is strange to me. That's why he's like leading in points, which I just find it weird this year. Like he's producing on both ends of the puck there. So very interesting.
But we need to move on because we don't got much time. So let's talk about the Olympics real quick.
I was excited, Kyle. We were having a good discussion there.
Good one,
I know.
This is another.
We got to keep going.
We have so much league news tonight. Believe me, it's unbelievable. So
I could leave you all night talking about that, but I gotta steer you on.
All right, what's next, Kyle?
The Olympics. Do you think the NHL is going to go?
no,
Nope.
Every single video that I've seen today, player reaction. Roman Yossi got asked this question. I don't know if you saw that video. It was like a 2-minute video, and he's just like,
not going to answer, but you know it's a no.
He's sitting there like this, as any perfectly Swiss person would, and remains neutral on the subject matter. But you could tell on his face like there are some major hurdles, and one of them is just the whole like quarantine thing. If you're there, like, are you going to get paid? Like,
Probably not.
That's not even if you test positive. You're basically stuck for 3 to 5 weeks in a hotel. You're not getting paid, and it's up to the discretion of the health authorities there if you're allowed to leave or not at that time frame.
Daniel knows about getting stuck in a hotel for quarantine and paying for it. So I rightfully understand because, like, apparently, like China's going to have their own rules, and then there's the Players Association is involved too. Honestly, right now, I don't know how many players honestly want to go to China with everything going on. You got a lot of boycotts. You got a lot.
There's like a diplomatic situation between the United States right now.
I mean, there's even, I don't know if you've heard about this. This is a side note, and I'm sure Matt did. There's like a women's Chinese tennis player who's gone completely missing, and like their government is so like hush hush about it. And then there was like a random tweet about it, and now like the tennis association saying like we're not going to do any events in China, like period from now on, because this. I mean, she literally is gone off the face. Like, and that's the thing that's like crazy about the Chinese government, because like we don't get to see much of it. And that said, I just don't know how much the players actually want to go do it at this point. And I don't blame them, because if you're going over there with no protection, no guarantee of pay, and just doing it to do it.
So, some of the specifics are, so it's the understanding that if you go COVID protocol outside of the leagues, so for the Olympics, if you come back, you won't be paid, but there is a little clause that there is a pool of money, something to the tune of $5 million, that's being established to try to offset that rule where players wouldn't get paid in that instance, because like you said, players are going to be inclined to not go if there's a chance they can't get paid. So that's a risk on the salary. And in addition, one of the biggest player agents said that the news about the 3 to 5 week mandatory quarantine if testing positive, he said that was the worst possible news that players could have heard. And he said his players are going to want to not do that. And McDavid even said he didn't outright say no, but he was like, it's looking like it's going to be a no.
How do you do a 3 to 5 week? That's an unbelievable long period of time. Like I just say, and how far is $5 million going to go when you have 20, 30 players that are making millions in a year test positive? Do you see what I mean? Like that pool, it's going to go real quick. Yeah. Like, and then you're not going to get paid, which, I mean, yeah, they're making millions. Okay, whatever. I could say like, you could use 1 or 2 weeks without the pay, like whatever. That's one thing. But I mean, if you were asking me to do that,
it's still a factor. It's a risk.
I'm not doing it personally. Yeah. It is a risk for me. It is a risk to my own personal salary. And there's really not much incentive for me to go. I mean, China's not giving me any incentive to go. I mean, let's be honest.
We should be glad that the NHL at the last meeting then said they're going to increase their cap by $1 million.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because it wasn't speculated to go up at all. What I had heard is that it's $1 million for next year, so that helped a little bit. But the league has to, I don't know the details of the finances. They have to pay some kind of money back, and it's going to take 3 years to pay this pool of money back. And then after the 3 years, then they said you can see a pretty substantial jump in the salary cap to what it like normal rate is, whatever that is. But it's going to be $1 million this year, and then in 3 years they have the chance to bump it up for sure. I will say, yeah, that's definitely the best news coming out of the GM meeting. That just happened, a couple days ago, and I haven't heard many people talk about it. I think they would want to mention that, but I thought we'd definitely throw that in there for just to mention it at least.
So, is the repaying of the money, is that due to like sales lost because of COVID?
I don't have any idea.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Just because I find it just curious, and like tonight we just actually got news that the Habs are going to be playing without fans. which
Meanwhile, Tampa Bay's down there going, bring them all in.
Yeah, I know. Like, literally, we're having a game in Nashville, and we have like 7 players, which we'll get to, like on the COVID list, and like they're piling everybody in Bridgestone. But obviously, the Canadian government has handled this totally different than the U.S. government. They basically restricted fans from coming back for a longer period of time. Like, we had more fans here. That was a big thing in the playoffs too. Because remember, like Nashville and Carolina were pumping in, almost 90% capacity, and there was literally 0 fans, attending the Habs games. But now we're back to that point, and that's just an interesting. It's like, at what point, like, are they trying to get the revenue in to start paying some of this stuff back to increase the cap? Like, it honestly scares me a little bit. Like, we got to get to some sort of normalcy. So it's going to be interesting to see how the league navigates not only their COVID protocols, but also the government protocols between Canada and the U.S., because apparently they're going to start cracking down more again in Canada.
Well, on a lighter note, the running joke is that, you really did the fans a favor because Montreal is such a tire fire this year anyway. So Montreal only has 6 wins in their first 30 games of the season, which is apparently the worst they've done since 1938. So
it's terrible. Bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Not missing too much in the stands this week.
Yeah,
for
they
sure.
just have like fans with like brown paper bags with the holes cut out. Like, they probably have like 5 of them there anyways. But I mean, I don't know. Save your money, Habs fans. I'll just put it like that right now. But still, it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that.
So I got a question for you guys. Avs and the Preds are playing tonight. Game just started, 7 o'clock at our time as we're recording this on a Thursday night. Preds got tons of players in the COVID protocol. We'll get to that in a second. But once our players come back, do you think that our Preds are an actual cup contender this year?
Oh, that's an interesting question you posed, because I guess here's the deal. I'm going to say no, because there's still some teams out there that are just smoking good. I mean, I'm looking at the Avs too. I'm looking at the Leafs, and some of these teams are really good. Okay. That said, though, I was pleasantly surprised today when I started looking at the league rankings. It's funny, we're 6th in the conference, okay? But we're 12th overall in the league in points percentage, which I thought is actually pretty impressive. Like, all things considered, yeah. I am super optimistic about this season so far. We just came off of a 5-game win streak. 4 of those were road wins against good opponents, too. Yeah. These weren't pushover games. Like, they're finding ways to win. UC Saros has been on fire the last, I think, 5 games, which I have some stats to back that up in a minute. So I'm going to say no as far as a cup contender right now, but they are trending in a very positive direction for a team that was supposed to be very mediocre this year. This is definitely a competitive team, and that's what I like seeing, especially with a lot of young talent on the ice.
I'm going to say no, because you guys are going to get all worked up and talking about playoffs. And it's going to hurt even worse when you guys, miss a wild card spot by 1 point. So I'm not getting up my expectations. The expectation at the start of the year was you guys are going to suck hard. You actually are pretty good this year. So I'm just going to be happy with that win. I'm not going to talk about the playoffs because I didn't expect it. So if it happens, I guess that's
if it
icing,
happens, it happens. That's my mentality.
So you said the Preds are just going to have the happy to be here mentality.
That's right. This living on the edge, it comes down, always in the Central, it comes down to the last game of the year, who's going to get in. And I'm tired of that, bro. My anxiety can't take it, okay?
It is crazy, though, because like one game, like a team will win, and they go up to like second, and then the next game they're in a wild card spot. I mean, it's literally that close.
2 weeks ago, when I was doing the stats for our last episode, 1 point separated second from 6. Like, that was how tightly packed the Central is. And it's crazy, just, things like that. Dallas was on a hot streak. They thought Dallas was going to actually be able to challenge Minnesota a couple weeks ago. Now Dallas is sitting towards the basement of the league, down there with Arizona. It's a mess. But so tonight, like I said, the Preds are playing the Avalanche. Hopefully, our people will come back pretty soon. The Preds that got put into the COVID protocol are Ryan Johansson, Mikael Granlund, Matt Luff, Michael McCarron, Philip Tomasino, and Ben Harper.
Here's the deal. Ben Harper can stay. Ryan Johansson, Granlund, and Tomasino, that hurts. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good chunk of production. And let me tell you, Granlund has been the assist machine for Duchesne, and Duchesne's out because of an upper body injury. So, yeah, I mean,
So basically tonight, we are the Milwaukee Admirals because, our coaching staff got put in there too. Head coach Hines gets put in there.
everybody.
Lambert gets in there.
Yeah, Dan last minute.
Yeah, everybody. And so, we call up Rocco Grimaldi, Matthew Olivier, Cole Smith from the Admirals, and then we get head coach Carl Taylor and Scott Ford. And this led me to think about the question. This is Rocco's first time playing with the Preds since he got sent down. He gets a call because of the COVID situation. Do you think Rocco is trying to get redemption? Because if you check his stats in the AHL, he's had 13 points in 14 games.
Yeah, and he's had 8 goals during that time period too. So pretty good amount. But at the same time too, it goes back to what we talked about with Brian. Rocco has great offensive upside, but typically his downside is the defensive side. On the boards, he's much smaller. He gets worked off the puck. Like, it just is what it is. And Hines has been valuing those two-way players. He wants the players that can work both ends. I don't know if he ever comes back, honestly. That's the problem, is like, as much as I love Rocco and that like gritty, almost like he's very much like an RV mentality, like go getter, dump it in, fly out there, try to get the puck on the board. I just don't see it. I don't see it because I see all the players come back from COVID and then immediately he gets pushed out again.
Well, it made me wonder, maybe his ceiling is AHL, and we've never actually really realized it until now.
I think that's something that Nashville fans really haven't grasped yet. Is some players just aren't quite cut out for NHL. And even honestly, we always look at the superstars, and the superstars like Jonathan Taves and Patty Kane. They've been there for years, and they're going to stay in the NHL. But some players only have like a 4, 5, 6 year career in the NHL. To make the NHL at all, you're an elite level player. And so even for him to play a couple years or a couple games a year in the NHL, you're incredible. But honestly, not everybody can be at that level, especially all the time. And some players just have that ceiling that they're right there at the cusp. Maybe make NHL, maybe not, maybe Black Ace. And I think Rocco Grimaldi definitely fits in that conversation for sure.
Well, I mean, here's an interesting point. We waived him. Any other team could have picked him up.
And nobody did.
And no one did, which honestly surprised me with his upside for offensive potential. Like, if you had a team that was really struggling offensively, I feel like he would have been a great fit there. He's obviously would fit in a bottom 6 position forward and add good offensive upside. But the problem is that defensive downside, and most teams don't want that. So I don't know. It's a very interesting conundrum that he has, especially after getting re-signed and Poyle saying, yeah, we want you and we want you to stay in Nashville. And then all of a sudden, like, all these youth come in and then we change coaches and then we have a totally different mentality of what the coach wants. And now Rocco's kind of left as the odd man out.
But to be fair, I thought that was a little shady. You don't tell somebody that we want you to buy a house and stay here. Knowing the fact that he may go down, that did leave a little bad taste in my mouth.
I don't think Poyle anticipated having to fire Lavi before he made all this, because that's the problem, is like that whole timeline was like, oh yeah, come on, and then like, oh no, I have to fire Lavi, and then we bring someone else, and then he has a totally different mentality, totally different coaching system than Lavi. It is, believe me, because you're still seeing players get broken from that system. And like I said, this is the first full year for Hines.
In fact, I'd heard the same thing said about the Canucks, that yeah, they've got a new head coach right now in Boudreau, but the question is, I had heard they haven't really labeled him as a long-term coach yet. It's more of an interim, at least for the end of the season, because they want to see, I heard the GM wants to see where the team is at, because where the team is at might depend on what coach he wants to bring in based on the upswing, on the downswing. Certain coaches have different strengths and weaknesses in those areas. So that's something that another organization also did.
So do you think Roman Josi is still going to be in the Norris conversation?
I think at the end of the year, he's going to be in the mix. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I've said this, I don't know how many times. These end of the year trophies that are like for overall awards, it goes on the assumption that you're able to stay healthy throughout the year. I mean, any injury and you're probably out of the running. You know what I mean? Like you have to be healthy and you have to be consistent. He has been consistent. Can he stay healthy? And then also with COVID going on, what if he gets COVID and he's out several games? You know what I mean? It's one of those things like there are so many factors, but I think he is definitely playing well enough to be a finalist. I don't know if he wins.
So do you think whoever wins the Norris Trophy this year is going to have an asterisk next to it?
No, because the last 2 years we've been playing through the same stuff, though.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Like I said, you have to be consistent, but there is some sort of inherent luck value. I mean, that goes for any player. Like McDavid, when he scores 150, well, he needs to be healthy the entire year to do that, and he has been. It's like we say with Philip Forsberg all the time, like, oh, well, he could have a 40-goal year. Well, he hasn't because he's always been injured, okay? So that said, there's an inherent amount of luck with it too. So can he stay consistent? I think so. Will he stay healthy? Who knows?
You know, I read an article in The Athletic today, just in the NHL in general. I'm sorry, it wasn't The Athletic. It was on the NHL's front page about the fact that we should re-sign Forsberg, that we shouldn't even deal with the idea of trading him away for something else, that we should just re-sign him and just make him a permanent Predator until he retires. And and you brought up the injuries and made me think about it. If the man can stay healthy, he is my favorite Preds player. Honest, of all the Preds players, he is my favorite. He's the one that brought me to like the identity of the Nashville Predators.
Yeah.
And even I'm sitting there going, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a constant question that we'll probably end up asking ourselves until it actually happens one way or another.
It's one of those, like I think Matt alluded to, like the longer it goes on this season, it is going to be interesting to see where we're at. I mean, halfway through the season, we're going to know a little better picture of where we're at, but we also have to figure out where he's at kind of at the same time too, because like you're either trading him for a boatload of picks because you don't want him to just walk away at the end of the year. So that's my whole thing. Is like you either trade him, get all the picks, or you either re-sign him before the end of the year because you don't want that to happen. Something has to happen during the season. Okay, I do not want to push this off.
What does GM Matt think?
Yeah, I'm a fan of not making a rush decision. Give me more data. I need more time to make a more informed decision. Where you're at is so close. I mean, you can go either way. You can make a case either way. So I like to make when either one sound right, I like to make the best one possible, but I need more information. So I could be talked, and you can squeeze more on one way or the other. But
what does your gut say?
My gut says, I can't even answer that, Kyle. I think as a fan, I want him to stay because I think the team needs to have some amount of identity that's at least not traded away.
Yes.
But I think if you find that your team is on the downswing, which we clearly have been for the last 3 years, you probably need to get rid of them to get more future parts, personally.
Well, that's my whole point. And I think you're saying the same thing I am. Like, something needs to happen in the season rather than wait for him to go all the way to the end of the season and then walk away.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I would rather re-sign now or get picks. Like, it's just the worst case scenario would be wait, and then he walks away for nothing. Like, that would literally, that would kill us right now. I mean, that would be the worst case scenario. But that said, I don't know. I honestly think he does stay because I think his heart does want to be here at the end of the day. But it is really going to come down to that term. How many years does he want? Because I think we'll be willing to pay the money, especially with the cap going up an extra $1 million. Okay, now we're talking, we got a little extra wiggle room, whatever. We can try to work this out money-wise, but the term will be the sticking point because he is going to want a long-term deal because he's in that awkward stage where he wants that security. I want that $8 million for, 6 or 7 years. I don't know if we can give that. That would be so hard to give another 6+ year 8 term. If he wants a 5-year term, okay, I'm all for that because guess what? You're still in your prime. We got 5 years. We know you're probably going to be pretty good. Okay, let's go for it. But anything past that, it's going to be a very fine line, and this is going to be a very delicate contract because his agent's going to be pushing. And because of the Landeskog contract and some of these other ones coming out, he's wanting to get that term, and I guarantee you that is going to be the sticking point.
Definitely, I agree 100%. And, this is where you got to be really good on the books. It's nice to have good talent, but the GM and front office ownership, you got to have really good book management because a long-term contract like this can screw you for years. And there honestly might not be enough flexibility to even make it happen because certain players want different things. And if that's, I need 8 years and you can't give it to him, well, all right, he's gone because you don't have flexibility in the book. So I preach that over and over. It's really important, and we'll see what's going to happen at the end of the day.
So, Matt, we have talked so much about league news tonight. I think this has actually probably been the longest episode that we've had a league news segment for. So, did we miss anything though?
There's a lot.
Well, it's been a massive last week or two. I enjoy talking that stuff with you guys. I try to not banter as much in the text messages because I like to do it naturally, organically on the air like this and get some of those hot takes out live. I will say a couple stats I'll throw out here as we wrap up. I'd like to give a hat tip to my boy, Zdeno Chara. I saw your guy got in a fight with him the other day, got his butt whooped. Zdeno Chara pulled his jersey up over his head and started beating him in the face until he started bleeding. But that's an aside.
Still smiled and walked off the ice like a true hockey player. Got 7 stitches, by the way.
Yeah, and they're technically tied in the fight card, 1-1.
I don't know about tied, but anyway, Big Z, Zdeno Chara is now third all time in games played amongst D-men with 1,629 games played.
Crazy amount. Can you imagine the wear and tear of 1,600 games?
Yeah, he's been pretty healthy too.
Yeah,
he's a
obviously to play 1,600 games.
Yeah.
I mean, well, first of all, he's a oak tree out there. So I mean, who's really roughing him up?
But how terrifying would that be to be skating on the ice and have him come next to you? I would look like a freaking baby next to him.
You'd be like Rocco. And what was it when?
I think it was Char and Rocco stood by each other and took a photo.
It was literally like an adult with a child. I mean, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. So I don't know, like he's a beast of a human. So you gotta love Big Z.
I always like to give him a hat tip whenever I can. And guys, I will throw one last thing in here. We have been working on getting some apparel and some items you can purchase with a Music City Gold logo on it. So we have a Redbubble store open now. If you go to redbubble.com/people/Music City Gold, we've got a bunch of stuff up from
we got everything, man.
Coasters to coffee cups to t-shirts,
leggings.
We've got mini skirts for your girls. I mean,
Matt, I want to see you coming here in a couple of weeks.
We got it all
with those MCG leggings on.
Yeah, I saw that as an option for design. I was like, hey, let's just throw that in there. I mean,
who knows? Someone might buy it. So yeah, I mean, and it's definitely obvious from our viewers that are listening and hopefully watching. We are trying to ramp up everything. So as we're doing this journey, please help us. Please support us because this has been a labor of love for us over the past. 4 to 5 seasons now, and we've been out of pocket just trying to put this together for a long time. So now we're finally putting ourselves out there, hopefully to recoup some of our costs, and we're going to be doing lots more on YouTube. We got more cameras coming in, so the production value is going up big time in the next couple of weeks. We're getting 3 camera angles, full switcher. It's going to be awesome. So
yeah, making Matt learn how to do video editing too on the side.
Yeah, make sure those cameras don't get that bald spot I got on top.
Is that why you're wearing the cap all the time?
That's why I got a baseball cap on.
Right now. So it's one of those things like we wouldn't be here, without some of our listeners already. So thank to all you that actually, I mean, it's crazy. Like seeing Brian too, like he was on the show and then all of a sudden he's now covering the Preds. But that said, just stay tuned for all of our upcoming announcements as far as that's concerned. Buy some of our merch. Please support us on YouTube as we start to try to grow that to help basically our ad revenue, because it's going to be a long process of that and definitely more of a labor of love. But we're excited with where we're going to take it over the next couple of years. So
yes, please make us famous, or YouTube famous at least.
Hey, Matt, I got one more stat for you though. UC Saros, the last 6 games, 5 wins, goals against of 1.49, a save percentage of 0.947, and 2 shutouts.
That's ridiculously high.
Yeah.
And I will say, my boy Tolvanen had 4 goals in 4 games,
3 tip-ins in a row,
my boy.
And then a slapper. So great to see, because all of a sudden it was like he scored on his first shot of the season in the first game, and then had 20 games of nothing, and then it was 4 games in a row, and that's great because that goes back to what Hines was saying: is he's doing everything right. It's going to start falling, and that's the crazy thing. They were tip-ins. Like it's something he's never been deemed good, but they've been excellent. Like that last one, he tipped it in between someone's leg, top shelf, right before the game ended. I'm like, what?
And immediately John Torella threw a fit about it.
Yeah, he's too good. But yeah, that said, nice to see him get on the board. But Saros has been hot, so let's hope he can stay hot through the streak to help the Preds. I think he's playing tonight, which good luck. with the Milwaukee Predators tonight and the Avalanche.
Makes you wonder if Big Save Dave's going to get Chicago tomorrow night.
More than likely. It's just very interesting with all these players out. I'm going to be tuned into this game big time tonight because I'm interested to see the outcome. But hopefully the Avs don't just destroy us. But, we literally have an entire AHL coaching staff tonight and 7 players sitting.
Let's repeat the chicken soup incident with Pittsburgh.
Could happen. Hey, we've had 2 incidents where we've gone to Detroit and gotten sick. And, he's like, yeah, Detroit knows how to try to get those dubs. But that said, we'll see. But it is going to be a rough couple of weeks as far as COVID's cases are climbing in the league. So we'll see how we get through it and navigate basically all the games. Hopefully there's not a ton more postponements, but
hopefully not.
Is what it is.
So what we got coming up, Dan?
All right. So after tonight's game against Colorado, obviously it's a back-to-back. Chicago immediately on Friday, followed by another tough game against Carolina on Sunday. We return home for Winnipeg next week, and then the Florida Panthers. And then following the week after that, on the 27th, we're looking at Dallas, and then hopefully by then we should be recording. So another tough stretch there. So, it's just kind of is what it is this year in the Central. It's going to be tight. All the games are going to be pretty competitive.
Yeah, and hopefully I will be at the Columbus game when they go to play them at the end of the year. Maybe we will see. If we don't get postponed, it's my Christmas gift to my wife.
Shh.
She knows.
Surprise. Oh,
she
okay.
knows.
Well, we didn't want to ruin it on here.
My wife, she handles surprises okay, but if I just told her to get in the car and just drive somewhere for 5 hours, she won't know where we're going. So we'll see. The goal is, Matt, we're going to try to get a puck. We're going to make a sign.
Maybe a stick. I'll go for a stick.
I'll be
You're
impressed.
On the road. You're on the road,
I'll
though.
be impressed.
You're
not a child, though. They don't give them out to adults quite as often.
Hey, he's child-sized.
They will confuse me for a child.
That's true.
Say, this child was so nice.
You need to
shave
shave.
Everything.
You need
gotta
to
shave first.
shave before the game. So.
Oh, goodness. Well, guys, that is the show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like the show, you can find us on Twitter at Music City Gold. And while you're there, be sure to go ahead and subscribe to us on iTunes at Music City Gold or on penaltyboxradio.com. Until next time, we will see you on the ice.
You've been listening to Music City Gold on the Penalty Box Radio Network. We'd love to interact with you on Twitter. The show can be found at Music City Gold. You can find Kyle at Kyle Hancock, Daniel at Steve Dan Drum, and Matt at Matt Bain 31. Past episodes of the show can be found by subscribing to Music City Gold or Penalty Box Radio on iTunes or at penaltyboxradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the ice.